This is the fine old Portuguese city of Porto, standing at the mouth of the River Douro. And here is one of its best known landmarks, the Iron Bridge. On the opposite bank of the Douro, we see signs of Porto's most famous product, port wine. All the well-known names are here, with signs on their warehouses: Sandeman, Fonseca, Graham, Taylors, and so on. Of course, all of them must be here, because this is the only place where it is permitted to make port. It is said that port was discovered by accident, when a wine shipper added brandy to some barrels of wine, in the hope that this would help them to withstand the sea voyage to England. Well, of course, the result was something delicious, and the rest is history. By the quay, in front of the port warehouses, we see some historic wine boats, called barcos rebelos. Port wine is made from grapes grown on terraces along the upper reaches of the River Douro. At the vineyards, the grapes are made into red wine, which is then transported down to Porto. Of course, these boats are just museum pieces, because nowadays the wine is transported in tankers by road. But in those days it came down in barrels on the wine boats, which were especially designed for the job. They have a shallow draft, with a flat bottom, and plenty of room for barrels on the deck. There is a sail to help speed things along, but the most striking feature of these boats is an enormous rudder, which could be controlled by one or two men standing on a platform. When we look at the gentle flow of the River Douro today, it is not easy to understand why the wine boats needed such an enormous rudder, but a cruise up the river will show us the reason why.
Vão de a Vila Franca e a meu conselho vejam da ponte pôr do sol tão vermelho ao longe no horizonte, porque é esse o seu destino, firme campino verde conduz.
In recent times, the River Douro has been tamed by a series of 5 dams, controlling the flow of water so that it is neither too fast after heavy rain nor too shallow in the drought of summer. As we approach this dam, its height becomes more impressive. Our boat enters a concrete doorway, and then immense gates close behind us. We rise steadily as the water pours in, nearly 500,000 gallons in a few minutes. And would you believe it, this is actually the smallest of the 5 dams, only about 50 foot high. The biggest dam has a height of 115 feet. But even this small dam is quite impressive. So it is not difficult to imagine that before the dams were built, the River Douro was fast and violent, with many a rocky cascade. Just look at the rocks shown in this old print. Now you begin to see why they needed a huge rudder, with a couple of men to do the steering. It must have been a great relief for them to get down safely to Porto. Once the wine reaches Porto, it is put into large barrels to be converted into port. And the key to this is the addition of brandy, which not only increases the alcohol content, but more importantly, stops the fermentation process. The residual sugar is not converted to alcohol, but remains as sugar, creating a sweet wine. Of course, the decisions about when to add brandy and how much to add are very skilled, as is the continued monitoring of progress. Also, there are numerous variations in the process. White wine can be used to produce white port, a delicious aperitif, less sweet and best served chilled. Variations in the production of red port include the use of smaller barrels for tawny port, to allow more contact with oxygen, rather than the enormously large barrels used for ruby port, which has a brighter red colour but a less complex taste. However, putting aside these variations and the important moments of skill, the production of port is almost all a waiting game. Non-vintage port can be released after 2 years in a barrel, but better ports will have been aged for 10 years, or 20 years, or even 40 years. No wonder that some bottles of port are extremely expensive. The Portuguese people have for many years been well disposed towards the British, grateful that over the centuries we have defended them against the Spanish and the French. Well, now you know the reason why we defended them. We couldn't allow the enemy to cut off our supply of port wine, could we?
É que está crente que esses bravos animais